A strange thing happens every single day. Someone lies to you. Not with a dramatic poker face, not with shifty eyes, not with nervous sweating. In fact, some of the best liars you'll ever meet look completely relaxed. They smile, they laugh, they hold eye contact. They even sound sincere. Because the biggest myth about deception is believing that lies live on the face. They don't. They leak through everything else. Tiny movements, milliseconds of hesitation, a shoulder that stiffens, a hand that suddenly disappears, a smile that arrives 1 second too late. Most people spend their entire lives listening to words while completely ignoring the silent language that's trying to expose the truth. And here's what's unsettling. Once you learn these signals, you can't unsee them. You'll notice them during arguments, job interviews, first dates, business meetings, even family dinners. But there's one body language cue near the end of this video that psychologists say people accidentally reveal precisely because they're trying so hard to look honest. And once you recognize it, you'll realize you've seen it hundreds of times. You just never knew what you were looking at. No single body language cue proves deception. But when several appear together, especially during emotionally important moments, they begin forming a psychological pattern, a pattern that often tells a completely different story than the words you're hearing. And the first clue is surprisingly common, yet almost everyone overlooks it. Number 1, the freeze before the answer. You ask someone a simple question, "Where were you last night?" For a split second, everything stops. Their face pauses, their shoulders become still, their breathing changes. Then they answer. That tiny pause is more revealing than most people realize. Here's why. Truth usually exists in memory. A truthful person retrieves information. A deceptive person often has to construct information. Those are completely different mental processes. When recalling a real memory, the brain searches through stored experiences. But when inventing one, the brain performs something much more demanding. It has to create a believable story, make sure it matches previous statements, predict whether you'll believe it, and suppress the real answer at the same time. That's an enormous cognitive load. Imagine trying to solve a difficult math problem while acting completely relaxed. Your brain momentarily slows everything else down. The body does the same. That brief freeze, lasting only a fraction of a second, can be the mind buying itself time. Not enough for you to consciously notice, but enough for your subconscious to feel that something shifted. Think back to conversations you've had. Have you ever asked someone 20 minutes, their hands move naturally? They gesture while talking. They emphasize ideas. Everything feels relaxed. Then you ask one uncomfortable question. Instantly, their hands disappear beneath the table. Nothing else changes. Their smile remains, their voice sounds calm, but their body has quietly retreated. That doesn't automatically mean they're lying. Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they're anxious. Maybe they're uncomfortable. But your brain should register the timing, because timing matters more than movement itself. Body language becomes meaningful when behavior changes immediately after a specific topic appears. That's the real clue. Not the action, but what triggered it. And what happens next is even harder to fake, because it involves something people rarely think about controlling: their feet. Number 3. The feet tell you where the mind wants to go. Feet pointing. It sounds insignificant until you understand what psychologists have observed for decades. Human attention doesn't only move through the eyes, it moves through the entire body, especially the feet. Unlike facial expressions, most people never consciously monitor them. They're busy controlling smiles, eye contact, tone of voice. Meanwhile, their feet quietly reveal something else, the desire to leave. Imagine talking with a coworker. Everything seems normal. Then the discussion shifts toward a missing report. Suddenly, one foot angles toward the nearest exit. Their torso stays facing you, their smile stays intact, but their lower body has already begun preparing to escape. It's subtle, almost invisible, yet incredibly common. The nervous system constantly balances two competing motivations: stay or leave. When psychological pressure rises, that ancient survival system starts planning movement before conscious thought catches up. Sometimes people literally lean away from uncomfortable truths. Other times, their feet become the first body part to vote, not because they're guilty, but because discomfort seeks distance. This explains why deceptive conversations often feel emotionally exhausting. The brain isn't just managing words, it's suppressing natural escape instincts. And suppressing instincts requires energy. Energy leaks through posture, through breathing, through muscle tension, through movement. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If someone can control their face, their voice, their eye contact, and even their hands, is there anything they simply can't fake? There is, and it's hidden inside one of the smallest movements the human body makes, a movement lasting less than a second, yet capable of exposing emotions people desperately want to hide. And that's where psychology becomes truly fascinating. Number 4. The smile that arrives too late. Here's something almost everyone has experienced, but very few people can explain. Someone tells you they're happy to see you. They say all the right words. Their voice sounds warm, but somehow it doesn't feel real. Why? Because genuine emotion moves through the brain differently than manufactured emotion. A real smile doesn't wait for permission, it erupts. The eyes soften first, the cheeks rise naturally, tiny muscles around the eyes contract almost instantly. Everything happens as one synchronized emotional event. A forced smile is different. The words come first, then, almost as if the brain remembers it's supposed to look friendly, the mouth follows. It's only a fraction of a second, but your subconscious notices. Imagine someone saying, "Of course I'm telling the truth." Their sentence ends, and then the smile appears. Not during the emotion, after it. It's almost like watching an actor finish reading a script before remembering to smile for the audience. That's because they're not expressing an emotion, they're managing your perception. Psychologists often refer to this as emotional incongruence, the mismatch between what someone says and what their body naturally expresses. The fascinating part is that our brains detect these mismatches long before we're consciously aware of them. That's why you've probably met people who seemed perfectly polite, yet something about them made you uneasy. It wasn't magic, it was pattern recognition. Your brain noticed the emotional timing was off, and timing is incredibly difficult to fake. But even more revealing than a delayed smile is what happens when someone suddenly starts touching themselves. Number 5. Self-soothing movements. Watch what happens after someone tells a difficult lie. They rub their neck, scratch an eyebrow, adjust a watch that doesn't need adjusting, play with a ring, touch their lips, stroke their arm, straighten their collar, pull at their sleeves. At first glance, these seem meaningless, but beneath the surface, something fascinating is happening. The human nervous system hates internal conflict. Lying creates tension, not because everyone feels guilty, but because deception demands enormous mental effort. Your heart rate can increase, stress hormones rise, breathing subtly changes. The body instinctively looks for ways to regulate itself. Just as a frightened child hugs a blanket, adults unconsciously comfort themselves through touch. These are called self-soothing behaviors. Imagine sitting across from someone during a difficult conversation. The moment the topic shifts toward accountability, their fingers immediately move to the back of their neck. Then they begin rubbing it slowly. They're not thinking, "I need to touch my neck now." Their nervous system made that decision before conscious awareness ever caught up. That's why these behaviors are so revealing. They're often automatic. But here's the important distinction. Stress does not equal deception. An innocent person accused of something they didn't do may display the exact same behaviors. This is why professionals never judge based on a single cue. They look for clusters, changes, timing, baseline behavior. Because psychology isn't about catching people, it's about understanding them. And the next cue reveals something even deeper, not where someone wants to hide, but where they no longer want to connect. Number 6, they break natural synchrony. They no longer know who they are without the mask. And that's what makes deception so psychologically fascinating. Every lie tells two stories, the story being spoken and the story the body is desperately trying to contain. The people who truly understand human behavior aren't the ones who memorize dozens of body language tricks. They're the ones who notice patterns, context, timing, emotion. Because no single gesture reveals the truth, but several subtle inconsistencies appearing together at the exact right moment can tell a story words never will. The next time someone says, "Trust me," don't just listen to the sentence. Watch what happens before it, during it, and after it. You may discover that the loudest confession was never spoken at all. If this video changed the way you'll observe people, don't let it end here. The mind leaves clues everywhere, not just in body language, but in silence, eye contact, confidence, attraction, manipulation, and the hidden psychological patterns most people never notice. Subscribe, because the more you understand human behavior, the harder it becomes for deception to hide in plain sight.